Ever had one of those days where you just want to sit on your porch, drink your coffee, and pretend the world outside your fence doesn't exist? Yeah, me too. But let me tell you, peace and quiet is a fantasy when you've got 10 acres of freedom on one side of a hill and an HOA full of power-hungry busybodies on the other. I didn't go looking for a fight. Hell, after 10 years of Army life, I wanted nothing more than to plant my flag, literally enjoy my land, and let the world do its thing. But if you ever wondered how a piece of paper could start a war, let me paint you a picture. It started as these things do with a letter. Not a friendly howdy neighbor, not even a warning shot. Just a stiff little envelope with the words Maple Hills Homeowners Association staring up at me like a snake in the grass. I almost laughed because, see, I'd never signed up for any HOA, never agreed to join their beige-colored manicured lawn club. But the letter didn't care about that. According to these people, I was guilty of half a dozen violations. Unauthorized shooting range, never mind that I built it myself out back safely away from anything but my own stubborn pride. Non-approved paint colors. A flagpole height infraction. Oh, and apparently I owed them a fat pile of cash for the privilege. You ever get so mad you just laugh? That was me. I threw the letter on my kitchen counter, ran my fingers over the deed to my property, free and clear, thank you very much, and decided to ignore the whole thing. I figured let them try. Turns out that was the worst thing I could have done. Because the next day they came knocking, Richard Gates, HOA president, and Karen Bloom, clipboard queen and professional scowler. They rolled up in their shiny black SUV acting like they owned the place. I didn't bother meeting them at the gate, let them walk. Richard, the kind of guy who probably practiced his "I'm disappointed in you" face in the mirror, was all smooth words and empty threats. Karen, bless her heart, looked ready to write me a ticket for breathing wrong. "We need to have a conversation," Richard said, checking his $2,000 watch. "About your violations." I sipped my coffee, didn't move an inch. "Do we—" That threw him off. Karen, clutching her clipboard like it was holy scripture, tried again. "You need to comply with Maple Hills standards." I grinned. "Lady, I'm not even in your HOA. My land's not your land." That didn't stop them. According to them, their record said otherwise. I told them their records were wrong. Maybe I shouldn't have pushed so hard, but I've never been much good at rolling over. They left after a few more veiled threats and promises of legal action. I stood there on my porch watching their SUV disappear and realized I'd just poked a nest full of snakes. Days went by quiet at first. But you can always tell when the storm is coming, you know. Next thing I know, there's a crowd of them at my fence, snapping pictures, jotting down notes. "Formal inspection," Karen announced, eyes narrowed like she was measuring me for an orange jumpsuit. I just shook my head. "You folks lost." They tried to tell me the law was on their side. So I did the only thing I could think of. I turned my back, pretended to take a long leak right there on my own grass, and told them what I thought of their inspection. That didn't go over well. They stormed off, but not before Karen hissed something about escalating the situation. And escalate they did. The next week turned into a circus. Cops showed up at my gate, noise complaints, reckless firearm use. The young officer looked more embarrassed than I was. "Just doing my job," he said. I nodded, pointed at my shooting range sign. Everything legal, everything by the book. But someone cut my internet cables that night. Clean, not chewed, sabotaged. Instead of losing my cool, I hit up the store, dropped a wad of cash on security cameras, night vision, cloud storage, the works. Let them try something now. That's when the fines started. They shoved another thick envelope in my mailbox, phony violations, demands for thousands of dollars. I taped all those notices together into one long, ridiculous scroll, strolled into their office, and handed it to the receptionist. "You forgot to print it on toilet paper." Her jaw dropped. I walked out before she could pick it up. For a week it was quiet, almost peaceful. But deep down I knew folks like Richard and Karen weren't done. I was right. I woke up one morning to the sound of power tools. Construction workers tearing down my shooting range. Richard and Karen standing by the road, arms crossed, smug as hell. I stormed over, voice low, fist clenched, and made it real clear. "You're trespassing. Want to call the cops or should I—" Richard turned white. Karen nearly dropped her clipboard. The workers wanted no part of it. They packed up and left. But that wasn't enough. The next night, they brought back up Richard Karen, 3 security officers in black HOA shirts. They thought they'd scare me into surrendering. Richard announced that my property was now officially part of Maple Hills HOA, like he was crowning himself king. I actually laughed. You forged documents fine me for existing and expect me to just hand over a check? Richard smirked. It'd be smart. You know that moment when you realize the only way to get through to someone is to stop playing nice? I fired 2 shots into the air, warning shots. Karen hit the ground, screaming. The security guys froze. Richard, he laughed, called my bluff, so I fired 1 more right past his head, close enough to part his hair. The laughter died. Next one won't miss, I told him. Nobody argued after that. They got in their cars and left Richard pale as a ghost, Karen shaking. I figured that was it, but these people, they don't stop. They dragged me to court, front page news, half the county turned up. The HOA lawyer tried to paint me as some crazy gun nut waving weapons at innocent folks. But my attorney, Melissa Carter, smart as a whip, cool as ice, rolled the security footage. Showed the world Karen cutting my cables, Richard trespassing their crew, marking up my land. The courtroom went from silent to snickering. Even the judge had to clear his throat. The jury came back fast. Not guilty. In fact, damn right, I sued them right back, harassment, trespassing, attempted fraud. The judge hammered his gavel, $250,000 owed to me. Richard looked ready to faint. Karen turned green. That was justice, real and raw. A month later, I was back on my porch. Beer in hand, sun dipping behind my woods. No more fake fines, no more sneaking HOA creeps. Richard bankrupt. Karen disgraced. The HOA dissolved. The neighbors actually thanked me for it, said it was about time someone stood up to those bullies. And Richard, well, I saw him one last time driving his busted-up sedan down the dirt road, engine sputtering, his old life gone, his little empire in ruins. And I just sat there grinning. Sometimes the world sets itself right. Sometimes karma doesn't need your help, it just needs you to stand your ground. I guess if there's a lesson, it's this. Don't ever let anybody tell you what you're worth or what you can and can't do on your own land. Not with lies, not with forged papers, and definitely not with threats. But hey, what do you think? Was I out of line? Did I go too far? Or is that exactly what people like Richard deserve? I'm curious. Where's the line between standing up for yourself and just starting another war? Ever been there? Drop your story in the comments. Let's see where you stand on justice, power, and when enough is enough. And if you've ever taken on a bully, well, this one's for you.